Hello and welcome to Change is Possible podcast. My name is Ani Filipova and I'm your host. When I left my banking career to try something new, the number one question everyone asked me was, how did you find the courage? The thing is, it's not about the courage. It is about knowing what you want and planning for it. That's why I started this podcast, to help you make your career change possible. Each of our guests have done a successful career change, and we are going to discuss practical advice, actionable tips, and inspirational stories that can help you to get unstuck and transition into work that you love. Let's get started. Hello everyone. My guest today is Myladie Stoumbou. She is the Regional Director for Partner Business Development in Microsoft Corporation. She is leading an innovative and fast-growing partner ecosystem across 33 countries in Central and Eastern Europe. She works on new business practices, services, and solutions that reimagine the way of doing business. Myladie studied computer engineering and informatics in the Polytechnic School of the University of Patras in Greece, and then she got a postgraduate diploma in economics and management. Myladie has worn many hats in her professional career. She was system engineer, programmer, project manager, account manager, business development executive, digital technology and innovation evangelist, sales manager, and all at the local or regional level. And this is what we are going to speak about. How did she do all these pivots? And what were the skills that helped her on the way? Hi, Myladie. Good morning. I'm delighted to have you as my guest today.
Hi, Ani. Good morning, and thank you so much. It's my pleasure. I'm very excited to be with you today. I have to tell you, I'm a bit, stressed because this is my first podcast, but I'm very sure and confident that we can have a very good conversation on topics that are very close to my heart. So looking forward.
Wow, your first podcast. That's a milestone. Great. So I hope there will be many other invitations for you. When I was reading your profile, I was reading Regional Director for Partner Business Development, and I just really don't know what is this. Can you explain what is your current job for lame persons like me?
Yes, as you know, Microsoft is a global leader into cloud technology. We are a platform company. We are offering our customers and our partners, actually we have thousands of customers and partners worldwide, best of breed technology platforms that they can use to digitize their business, to make innovative solutions, to drive, let's say, growth, leveraging the digital opportunity. So my job is to really find those companies who are having a passion for innovation, and they are willing to work with us into developing solutions that customers love. We are working with unicorns, we are working with startups, we are working with independent software vendors and companies who develop software, focusing on technologies like artificial intelligence, like Internet of Things, RPA, robotics process automation, you name it, all the best of breed modern technologies that can help the customers optimize their business, become more resilient. This is particularly important in times like this, in times of crisis, and also drive growth on a global scale. We have I would say, an ambition for Greece and the Central and Eastern Europe. And the ambition is that given the very strong talent we have in the region, we want to keep the brain in Central and Eastern Europe, in Greece, in Bulgaria, in Czechia, in Poland, but export the innovation. So my job is helping those companies to create the innovation and offer it to their global customers.
Well, that was amazing explanation. Thank you so much. And I love the thing you said, to keep the talent in Eastern Europe. That's a great goal to have. And you graduated from computer science. Was this a popular choice at that time? And what made you choose this field?
Well, before I answer that, I want to take you back to the 80s, if I may. Annie.
Please.
I was growing in a very small provincial town in Western Greece. I was raised with lots of love, with the wisdom of the ancient philosophers, with the drama plots of the ancient tragedians, and the theorems of the ancient mathematicians. And I'm saying that because my parents were school teachers, okay? Yeah. And at that time, we had no mobile phones, we had no internet, no personal computers at home. You might remember these incredible times. My only pastime at the time and my favorite pastime was reading, okay? It was a moment that I could take a break from reality and delve into another universe. So when I had to pick my path, when time came that I had to pick my path, and I decided to my parents that I would be taking exams to become a computer engineering, it was a bit of a silence in the room. I was a top student, top in math, top in science, but also top in history, top in ancient Greek, etc. And there were concerns like my mom said. My mom is always a realist. My mom said, I think it's best you become an English teacher, right? It will be easier for you. You will have less working hours. You can focus on the family you will eventually create. That's a career, path for a woman. My dad on the other side was saying, go after your dream. Don't be afraid, etc. I think the reasons I stood by this decision was my inner voice filled with curiosity. Okay, I had a lot of curiosity. I had an appetite to grow in areas that no one in our social circle has been before. I had the urge to explore an unexplored universe for me. I was reading about this universe, okay? And I was so excited about this new world that is coming, And it was actually the first time in my life where I challenged common beliefs and stereotypes about women's skills and suitable career paths for women.
I see. Well, that's, I can relate with everything you said about the 80s and how you grew up, because that period, it was the same with me. I was reading a lot, but my focus and my interest was in travel and foreign lands and, countries like Singapore and Macau. These, names sounded so interesting and so
exotic.
Mystic. Yeah.
Yes.
So I was like, yeah, I'm going to travel. That was my goal.
Yeah.
And after the you graduated, right? And
yes.
How did you choose your first job? And when you started, was it what you expected and imagined about work and this new world that is coming?
Okay. Well, my first real job started after I graduated, but my first, I would say, semi-job started when I was studying. The reason I decided to start working on my field, not doing a side job, but working on my field while I was studying, was because I was faced with a lot of gender stereotypes at the time. We were very few women in the class, and we were not fitting actually the geek profile that remains still very popular in the tech industry. So I had to compete with men who were already coding. As I told you, I was coming with no computer at home from a family with no computer at home. So I had to compete with people who were faster than me, and better than me, and coming from bigger cities than me, with more opportunities to access technology than me. So at that time, I said, okay, I started volunteering at the computer center in the university. And then, of course, this became a job, part-time job, where I dealt with my insecurities. I managed to deal with my insecurities. I became a trainer in the beginning. I was training fresh students. Then I became a systems administrator, and that was a big promotion, right? Being a student, a systems administrator, managing the email system for the entire campus. Of course, it came with some sacrifice. When my friends were partying in the weekends, I was working double shift. Yeah. But, my knowledge grew, my reputation grew, my confidence grew. And then when I graduated, first job came quite easily. I just applied and I got hired in the first attempt, actually. There was scarcity of talent in the tech industry at that time in Greece. So it was quite easy to find a job. And I would say a good job. a well-paying job, a job that helped me, get a lot of knowledge and a lot of skills. I was growing very fast in the first years of my career. I had a lot of opportunities to learn, to travel, as you said, to work with more experienced people. It was great times.
Great. Fascinating story. Really. What drove you to sales? How did you transition to that? And what made you want to move?
Well, I would not say it was an intentional move on my side. It happened over time. When I actually started gradually with my first employer, I was hired to become a pre-sales engineer for a new product that the company was representing in the Greek market. And I had to learn the product inside out. And when the first project came, I did not sell the project, but I was the one who was asked to implement the project. So I started really working on the engineering and development with a certain product. But as the projects were coming and the team was growing, I became a project manager for the projects. And then, of course, ambition in the company about this line of business grew. So my boss asked me, to help him with sales. So it came like, the evolution of growth of and success of engineering and development component rather than an intentional decision on my side. Was it easy? I would say yes and no. No, because I was not so much used into the rigor of sales, the stress of sales, the pipeline and the sales execution part that needs to be very disciplined if you are in sales. I had different type of stress. When you are in the delivery, you have different type of stress. When you are in the sales, you have a different type of stress. But on the positive note, I think, and if I talk about the skills, needed for somebody who wants to do that similar transition, I think that someone who has common social skills can really become a good seller. And talking about common social skills, I would highlight two, actually. The first is building human connections, becoming trusted advisor to your customer, becoming important for their business, and building that connection and growing that connection and that relationship. And the second part has to do with active listening, because in my career, I have seen a lot of good sellers. They're considered good sellers, but not great, who talk too much and listen too little. And I think listening and understanding opens up huge opportunities to grow portfolio, to grow your customer, to grow with your customer, not just your business with the customer, but to grow with your customer, which is really important. I think those two are the two most important things that helped me in my transition into sales. The other skills, like negotiation skills, are things that you build in the way with good training, with practice, with trial and error. Sometimes you make mistakes, you learn from them, you build over time. But those two, I think, are the key ones. If you want to go to pursue a career in sales, you need to be a human connector, to be connecting with humans and to listen a lot.
Absolutely. And great that you say listening, because when you think about it, at school, they teach us to write, to speak.
Yes.
But nobody teaches us to listen. And then down our path and later in life, you can actually differentiate people by how well they listen, right? You said it absolutely right.
I can tell you I was biased in my first years with people who were silent in meetings, okay? And I was saying, okay, this lady is like a director or whatever, and she didn't utter a word in that meeting. How's that? But yeah, I think I did not appreciate listening so much. Being an extrovert, myself, in the beginning, I was you always have the urge to say things, okay? And you always have the urge to to give insights, to share solutions, even before you listen well to the problems. Yeah. And it takes, sometimes of reflection after a few meetings that you realize that you could have listened more and talked less.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's inevitably what happens. Yeah. I hope and I wish more people actually come to this conclusion early in their lives. Myladie, you had spent 10 years in Microsoft and have changed jobs several times within the organization. Were these changes initiated by you or the company? And when you work in a multinational organization, do you have to take charge of your career, and how?
Before I talk about myself, I will answer the second question because it will resonate better, I think. I always tell my team when they come to me about career coaching or advice, your job belongs to your employer, your career belongs to you. Okay? Or your employer owns your position, your role, but you own your career. Okay? I think this is important for everyone to have in mind. Although I'm not a person who strategizes a lot about my career. In my 10 plus years now with Microsoft, I have been moving in different roles and in different functions of the organization, not so connected with each other, and I can explain that from time to time. Sometimes it was initiated by me, sometimes it was propositions coming from people within Microsoft who knew me and appreciated my skills. So it was both ways. In all cases, I think it was a rewarding path, a path of exploration, as I said, with different functions, different teams, different geographies, enterprise customers, smaller customers, even developers, more technical roles, more sales roles. It was a rewarding path, but yes, as we said in the beginning, many times I went for it. I went for other roles as well that I did not get. That's the way things are. Yeah. But these diversions, that I got after these small or big failures got me where I am today. So I'm grateful.
Great. And I compare this, what you said about taking charge of your career and the job belongs to the company. I compare this with a car. So imagine you get in a car and the car is not yours and the driver is somebody you don't know. And if you don't say where you're going, they will take you wherever they want to go, right?
Yeah.
But if you say where you want to go and tell them this is how we're going to do it, then you take charge and then you also have a say and it will be much more powerful and you achieve much more.
If I may say something on that, because I think knowing where you want to go for some people might not be easy. Yeah. And I say that from my own experience. Yeah. If you ask me where I want to go, I don't have full clarity or accuracy where I want to go. Yeah. But I know what I don't want to do. Okay, yes. Where I don't want to go, which is very important. Yeah. And I know my principles. Okay, what are my principles for choosing the next role? One of my biggest principles for choosing the next role is I have a passion for learning. If I feel I would learn and keep learning, I can go into the next role. I can decide on a next role. If I feel that I would go in a role that is not, I would say, a learning stepping stone for me, not so much a career stepping stone, but a learning stepping stone, I go with all my heart.
Correct. No, that's a great clarification and a statement, because I didn't know even when I left my corporate career what exactly I'm going to do. And then things kind of, you open your horizon, you meet different people and ideas come flowing. And that's exactly the same with the corporate job. And funnily enough, I was driven by travel. Is my next job going to give me more travel or not? Let's say 80% travel, 20% any other consideration. So it's interesting
your principle. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely. So we live in a world with a lot of change and it is fast-paced, as you mentioned earlier. What do you think are the most essential skills to learn so you're ready for the future? that is coming. I mean, it's changing so fast. There are new technologies every day.
Yes.
And jobs disappear, new jobs appear. So what are these most essential skills to learn, in your opinion?
Well, people think that the most essential skills for the future are the digital technology skills. And because our world is becoming more digitized, new technologies emerge. There will be AI solving a lot of the problems that people deal with today on a day-to-day basis, etc. So, and definitely coming from the tech field, I do believe that people need to really sharpen their technical skills and the digital skills to the extent that this makes sense, of course, for them and their future career. But on top of that, I believe that there are a lot of soft skills that are very critical into the future. And we talked about learning earlier. For me, the learning capability and the commitment to individual learning is very important. Sometimes when I talk to people, I say I'm very selfish about my learning. While I'm very generous about sharing what I learned, I am very selfish about learning. This means that I will make time in my busy day to learn something. And we are living in a world that there's so much abundance into learning opportunities, talking about trainings like LinkedIn learning, programs or other programs in different platforms. You have access to really a lot of things if you have the appetite to learn. The second thing is, having some agility, because we need to navigate uncertainty. We saw that with the pandemic, how things changed on a professional, personal, social, entrepreneurial, you name it, perspective. Agility to navigate uncertainty, to live with the unknown, okay? And to be ready to sometimes try things that they are not working all the time because things change. So keep yourself with good terms on failing sometimes is a good thing. Yeah. But also staying resilient, to continue. And then I believe the problem-solving capability, which is, something I was trained with. Engineering, departments have this problem-solving in the core of the training programs. But, if you combine this with more data today, because we have a lot of data. So making sure that we solve the problems, but you make the decisions based on data, that could be a magic combination.
And you started with this, that people focus on digital skills, AI, etc. But at the end of the day, and I shared this with you before when we had private conversations, we work with people, our clients are people, our bosses are people. Actually, you work with people and the people teaching the machines. So basically,
exactly,
fine-tuning your skills to really connect with people are the best that you can do for yourself for the future. When I was looking through your career on LinkedIn and generally what I've seen in the press about you, it seems so straightforward and upwards. I guess, and I believe you had many setbacks, right?
Yes.
So what was this a moment in your career when you were really stuck and you had to draw on all your strengths to keep going? How did you do it? How did you overcome the obstacles?
Yeah, I think it was a critical moment in my life. I was many years with that employer. It was actually long before I joined Microsoft. Many years with that employer. It was a company that I felt really connected to because, staying with the same employer for many years and, you know everything there. You feel connected with even the building, I don't know how to explain that, but you understand what I mean.
Yeah.
So I was growing and I was learning, etc. But when it was time to advance my career and become a manager, and actually I applied for a job that I was fully equipped to do, and I would say that the strongest candidate for that role, I was declined the position because I was a mother. And the general manager at that time, he said that to me very openly that, you're a mother, what will your husband say? Who will take care of your kids and how will you manage the long hours?
Gosh.
And I was very, very depressed because I was working long hours already. Okay. And nobody was asking me that on those long hours, how I was managing, my kids and my family. It was a really bad moment. It was a moment of realization that there is gender bias. And actually, it was a moment in life that when reflecting upon later, it was the moment that I decided to become more vocal about bias at work and equality at work. So it was the moment I started, talking about equality at work. So, but you asked me how I overcame this. Of course, I was depressed in the beginning. For a moment, I was stuck. I felt stuck. I felt I would never make it. I was depressed. But at some point, as I said, if you have a passion for learning and personal growth, I realized I had a choice. And I decided to quit this job, actually, to pursue other more interesting and more rewarding paths. So I took a risk. I went from a very established company into a startup, doing something different and starting up a new line of business in that startup to do something, that would give me the appetite and the energy to drive myself forward. And that's how I did. I pushed myself, of course, because I had small kids at the time. But it was something that I really made an intentional choice, that I had to stand up with my abilities, my beliefs, my appetite to grow. So I made it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You just pushed yourself in the direction you wanted to go.
I can tell you. I can tell you.
The same with me. Although I didn't have such a moment similar to that, I did push myself quite a lot. I had similar issues of, am I good enough? Am I going to make it, etc. But I guess everybody has these doubts. And you mentioned something important, that you went from an established company into a startup. And that's a risk, but then this risk pays off because you learn a completely different side of a business, a startup,
Indeed.
Which after that gives you so much more leverage for other jobs. And that's so important also for people to realize that it's not always up, it's sideways, downsizing, etc. And it all helps you.
I said earlier that these diversions after the failures gave me such a broad experience. It's like putting different building blocks on a whole. And that's amazing. Sometimes I feel like from the things I do every day, now I'm working with startups. Life has this type of cycles. I can understand them, although I'm working in a big corporation.
No, absolutely. You go through these 360 degrees and you suddenly know, I know that. It's nice to have this, right? Myladie, we had such an interesting, fascinating discussion. And I thought I know about you. And now suddenly I've learned so much more. And we are at the end of the podcast, unfortunately. At the end, I always ask the guests to share with the listeners 3 key takeaways and advice for those who have in mind to plan a career change. What would be your 3 takeaways?
Well, you asked about 3. I will give you 5 at the size of 1, at the package of 1. I will explain.
Selling techniques. I'll give you 5 for 1.
Yes. No, honestly, I have a passion for acronyms. I work for a company who loves acronyms. So I use my own acronyms from time to time. And I have one acronym that I want to share with our listeners today. Personally, I feel very privileged and grateful about all the experiences, the learnings, and the people I have met on my journey. And if I have one thing to share, is that I led my path with grace. Okay? This is the word I'm giving. The key takeaway is grace. But I will decompose grace into the 5 letters. Okay?
Okay.
So the first thing is being generous. As I said earlier, I am selfish about learning, very generous into giving, into sharing. So I try to share as much as I can from my learnings. I try to be a giver, not only a taker. And all the opportunities, whether they are networking opportunities or other opportunities for me, is with pure, willingness to give. Okay. This helped me a lot in my career, giving. I have to say that.
Absolutely.
The second part is about resilience. We talked about resilience, okay? Being resilient, trying new things, failing and exploring new arenas, making mistakes and learning from them. It's very, very important in the times we live in, times of uncertainty, times of war, of pandemic, of financial crisis, you name it. Yeah. A stands for authenticity. Being authentic, even in times where you have to follow certain norms, when you have to face bias around you, being true to who you are is really, really important. And bringing yourself into what you do, your authentic self into what you do. C stands for courage. In my career, I was never afraid to make some decisions. Talking about business decisions that could be tough, that could, break the status quo. But I think if you want to drive change, if you want to make the omelette, you need to break those eggs, okay?
Yeah.
You need to deliver the changes you want to do in the business to also have your brand created around that.
Yeah.
And then the E stands for empathetic, staying human, listening, as we talked before, customers, colleagues, trying to understand, particularly when you work in a multicultural environment like the one I'm working with 33 countries. It's so diverse environment. Try to connect from the heart and try to understand. These 5 pillars, generosity, resilience, authenticity, courage, and empathy, have been my compass over the years.
Well, this is such a great ending of our podcast, Myladie. It was a great pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for being my guest, and I wish you all the very best in the future.
Thank you so much, Annie, for having me. It was a pleasure and such great energy to start my day. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you want to be notified of future episodes, please hit the subscribe button. I would love to hear your feedback. Please write a review whenever you can. Thank you and have a great day.